We're learning the laws of Sanhedrin, the courts. Mhm. Oops, there we are. The courts. And now we're learning in chapter 22 some of the behavior that's necessary for the courts. So when two people come, in chapter 22, halacha 1, when two people come before a judge, one soft and one harsh, before he hears their words, or even after he hears their words, but does not know the direction in which the judgment is leaning, he has license to tell them, I will not involve myself with you, lest the harsh litigant be held liable and speak vengeance from the judge. Right? After you hear it. So, in other words, a person can recluse themselves, right, from a judgment. He's not obligated to hear the judgment, uh, fearing that this person is harsh, meaning a person who takes vengeance, right? After he hears their words and knows in which direction judgment is leaning, he does not have license to tell them, I will not involve myself with you. As the verse says, do not be intimidated by any person concerning a judge. That verse implies that one should not say, so and so is wicked. Maybe he will kill my son, set fire to my crops, or cut down my trees. If he is an expert appointed to judge the many, he is obligated to involve himself with them in all circumstances. So it's interesting. I'm not clear how you make a distinction that before he knows the way he would rule. I guess once he knows the way he's going to rule, it's like I've judged. Not only am I judge, but I have judged. So you can't then remove yourself from that judgment. But before that, you could. How you get that distinction in the words, do not be intimidated by any person, I don't get. But that's how Chazal learns it out. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay, halacha 2. Similarly, if a student was sitting before his master, a student is sitting before his master and became aware of a factor that would vindicate a poor person. Second, the people let in, please. Q. So you become aware of a factor that would vindicate a poor person and obligate the rich adversary. He transgresses the above commandment if he remains silent. Right. Concerning such matters is to keep distance from the words of falsehood. What is the source which teaches that a judge should not have underdeveloped students sit before him? It is written, keep distance from words of falsehood. Hmm. In other words, so if a student knows something against his master, right? Well, I don't know if it's against. One second. Is it master or? No, no, not his master. I'm sorry. Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Correct, correct. No, I'm not clear what the point here is. The point is that the teacher should not have such students. Hmm.
Whether is the master or judge?
No, yeah, that's what I'm not clear. I don't think so, because then he should be called the judge, not a master, right? He's called rabbi. Rabbi means his teacher, right?
Okay, right.
Right. So it's not the judge over here. That's the way I understand it, but I might be wrong.
See, because then we went on to speak about a judge and developed student,
Yeah.
as though it's like a student and a master, that sort of comparison.
It's still, yeah. So I'm not clear. I have to look at the, okay. Sarachian. Okay. What's the source which teaches that a student who sees his teacher erring with regard to a judgment? So here it is about the teacher who, right? So in context, it sounds to me that he is judging, right? Erring, because yeah, so that's what it means in the previous one. The master was the judge, and he's the student, and he knows something, and he's not going to say, um, he shouldn't be a student of this master. He must say. Now, why wouldn't he want to say? Because a rich person? That's a good question. Okay. Now we're talking about that the teacher is erring with regard to a judgment. So the student, right, with regard to should not say, I will wait until he renders judgment. Then I will refute his ruling and then construct a new one so that the judgment will be quoted in my name. As it's written, keep distance from the words of falsehood. What's false there? Is that it's not about truth. It's about, I'll show my teacher that I'm a scholar. I'm going to show people I'm a scholar. That's falsehood. That's your own self-glory. Don't do that. Right? In other words, he's erring, the teacher is erring, and you know something, you have to say right away. Halacha 4. At the outset, it is a mitzvah to ask litigants, do you desire a judgment or compromise? If they desire compromise, the compromise is negotiated. Any court that continuously negotiates a compromise is praiseworthy. Hear that? And then we look for a compromise. Concerning this approach, it states, adjudicate a judgment of peace in your gates. So compromise is peace. Compromise. Which is compromise. Oh, and which is a judgment involves peace, a compromise. Similarly, with regard to King David, it's stated that David carried out justice and charity for the entire people. What does justice and when does justice involve charity? When a compromise is made. When does the above apply? Before a judgment is rendered, even though the judge has already heard their arguments and knows the direction in which the judgment is heading, it's a mitzvah to negotiate a compromise. Once the judgment is rendered and he declares so and so your claim is vindicated and so you are liable, we may not negotiate a compromise. Instead, let the judgment pierce the mountain. It is what it is, and you got to accept it, right? Okay. Although litigants agree to compromise in court, they have the authority to demand the judgment until they confirm their commitment to a compromise with a kinyan. So once they make a kinyan, an active act, of like, okay, do you accept to make a compromise? One litigant picks up. Do you accept the second one? Also picks up an object, to confirm their acceptance of making a compromise. A compromise has greater legal power than a judgment. To ordinary people rendered a judgment. Their judgment is not binding, and the litigants need not accept it. However, such individuals negotiate a compromise, right? Only two of them, and litigants affirm their agreement with a kinyan, they may not retract. Even though a court of law is three, right? That's why it's not binding, because it's not three. But if it was a compromise and they agreed to that compromise, even though it was only two, it is binding. after leaving the court, it is forbidden for any of the judges to say, I was the one who vindicated you or held you liable, and my colleagues differed with me. What could I do? They outnumbered me. You're not allowed to say that, right? If he says this, he is among those to whom the words are of censure. It says he's gossiping, revealing secrets is applied. An incident occurred with regard to one student who revealed the private conversation of the house of study. 22 years later, the court had him removed from the house of study and denounced him as a revealer of secrets. Wow, powerful. If either of the litigants asked the court to compromise a record of judgment, to compose rather. So into compromise, huh? Sometimes you can't compromise things. Certain things you can't, like reading the right word. If either the litigants ask the court to compose a record of judgment, they write it for him in the following manner. So and so came to this and this court, and so the opposing litigant claiming this and this. He was vindicated or held liable. The record is given to him without mentioning the names of those who vindicated him or those who held him liable. Instead, it says merely from the statements of the court that such and such and so was vindicated. Very powerful. So opposite of Western, culture. That way you know whose house to burn down, right? Because, you held me liable, right? I'm going to burn down your house. Lacha number 9, this was the custom of the men of Jerusalem. They would bring litigants into the court and listen to their statements and claims. They would then bring in the witnesses and listen to their statements. Afterwards, the judges would have all others removed and would debate the matter among themselves until they came to a decision. Afterwards, they would call the litigants in, and the judge of the greatest stature declares so-and-so, your claim is vindicated, or so-and-so, you are liable. In this way, the litigants do not know which judge vindicated him and which judge held him liable. Halacha 10, halacha in this chapter, when a judge knows that a colleague is a robber or a wicked person, it's forbidden for him to sit in the judgment with him, as it stated, to keep distance from the words of falsehood. Right? You know that. This is a practice that would follow in Jerusalem's men of refined character. They would not sit to participate in a judgment unless they knew who would sit with them. They would not sign a legal document unless they knew who would sign with them. And they would not enter a feast until they would know who was joining them.
But if someone is a wicked person or robber, how could they still be in the capacity of the God?
Someone's litigating against them. Say you robbed me or whatever. You took money unfairly from me. Whatever it is, so he still go to court. You're asking why is he going to court?
Because I got the impression that the colleague is one of the members of the court.
Huh?
However, it appears that one of his colleagues is a member of the court. Because it is forbidden to sit in judgment with.
Yeah, with him, not against. Yeah, yes. I'm sorry. I read it wrong. Thank you. Correct. I read it wrong. Yes. I need more coffee. So no, it's about sitting in judgment with another that you know that there's something wrong with them. So you're not allowed to. Yeah. And that makes sense. I read it wrong totally because then the next part follows with it. Right. Let's just do one halacha from chapter 23. Deuteronomy, it states, do not take a bribe. This is a command applies with the intent is to pervert judgment. That's needless to say that you're going to pervert judgment, right? In other words, make the guy who's really guilty, exonerate him. The verse is teaching that it is forbidden to take a bribe to be given even to vindicate the just and to obligate the one who is liable. The judge transgresses a negative commandment. Such a person is included with a malediction. Cursed be those who takes bribes. He is required to return the bribe if he is demanded to by the giver. So it's return if he's demanded. In other words, you're even you're taking the bribe from the person who you believe you found not guilty. You found they're vindicated, but you still took a bribe. You're not changing your mind. You're not allowed to. All right. Thank you for joining. Sei mir gesund. 6:30 tonight. Just a reminder, we have 6:30 tonight. And